Silence filled the room as the doctor mulled over the situation, and finally he said, "How did you say this happened?" Not really knowing what this meant, she replied simply, "How did what happen?" "I think her arm is either broken or dislocated. I need to get it x-rayed." "Did she have a fall from a tree lately?" "I really don't know. I work so much and I'm never home to see what goes on during the day." Unable to feel satisfied with Jane's answers, Dr. Lester said, "You'll have to step into the waiting room while I go and have her arm x-rayed." Hello, welcome to In My Words. The book I am reading from is titled The Monster We Call Dad by D.A. Riles. This book is not intended for young readers. After each reading session, I will briefly give information about a chosen plant. I hope through my words you will gain insight, knowledge, and a deeper appreciation and understanding of this mysterious and intricate world. Though the road may be long and hard, compassion and beauty can be gained through the enjoyment of nature and experiencing its wondrous gifts. Thank you for joining me. Upon exiting the room, Jane heard the nurse conferring with Dr. Lester. Jane didn't like the feeling she was getting from the nurse. She felt as if she was being condemned for something, but she didn't know what that something was. Moments later, Dr. Lester entered the room saying, "Ah, Mrs. Schultz. So, what seems to be the problem today?" the slightly plump doctor asked Jane. "Something seems to be wrong with Sarah," Jane said almost bitterly, then added with concern, "She hasn't been herself lately." "Well, let's take a look," responded the smiling doctor. "Do you have pain anywhere?" He directed his question toward Sarah. Sarah said nothing and turned her gaze to a small drawing which seemed to have been done by a child. Staring intently at it took her away from the question at hand. "Is she always this quiet?" he questioned Jane. "Not really. Sometimes she'll sit for short periods of time, but never has it been days like it has been lately." "Oh, I see. Did she get hurt recently?" "Not that I'm aware of." "Has she told you that she has pain anywhere?" "No, she's been quiet." Frowning, Dr. Lester looked into Sarah's eyes with a light, checked her throat, and looked into her ears. "Everything seems to be fine. Does she have any injuries?" "I've noticed that she won't lift her right arm." Seeing the doctor reach for her, Sarah unintentionally pulled away. "That does seem to be the source of her problem." He smiled at Jane and then touched Sarah's chin, adding, "I need to look at your arm. I'll try not to hurt you, okay?" The young girl averted her gaze and still said nothing. Her behavior troubled the doctor, but he turned his attention back to Sarah's arm. Starting at her fingertips, Dr. Lester worked his hand up to Sarah's shoulder. Sarah felt a shock pierce through her arm and into her neck. She wanted to cry out, but whimpered instead. "Has she fallen lately?" he questioned as he carefully lifted the back of Sarah's shirt up. "No, not that I'm aware of." Jane really didn't have any answers for the doctor and felt as if he were trying to make her confess to something which she knew nothing about. "I see," was the simple response. Silence filled the room as the doctor mulled over the situation, and finally he said, "How did you say this happened?" Not really knowing what this meant, she replied simply, "How did what happen?" "I think her arm is either broken or dislocated. I need to get it x-rayed." "Did she have a fall from a tree lately?" "I really don't know. I work so much and I'm never home to see what goes on during the day." Unable to feel satisfied with Jane's answers, Dr. Lester said, "You'll have to step into the waiting room while I go and have her arm x-rayed." Pressing a button on the wall, the nurse appeared and ushered Jane out of the room. The young mother felt a little uneasy as she was escorted out, for what if Sarah told the doctor something that wasn't supposed to be talked about? Taking a quick glance back at her daughter, she saw Sarah's head bowed. Not being able to signal to her daughter to not say anything, Jane walked away with the nurse. When both the nurse and Jane were gone, Dr. Lester questioned Sarah alone. "How did you hurt your arm?" he questioned with a soft smile. Tears sprang to Sarah's eyes, and yet said nothing, for the fear of reprisal was much more intimidating than the kindly aging doctor. "Is there anything I can help you with?" He tried to prod further. Sarah kept quiet with her head bowed low as Dr. Lester tried to get the young child to talk, but all his attempts were to no avail. So for now, Dr. Lester let the subject drop. The walk to the X-ray room made the little child feel apprehensive. She looked at the walls as they walked by them in the hall. Wishing she could go home, Sarah followed the doctor silently. Entering the room made Sarah feel uneasy as she looked at the starkness all around. There seemed to be only one cupboard and a large operating-looking table. Dr. Lester pulled out a stool for Sarah to climb up on. Once seated on the overly large table, he tried to question the child once more. Coming down to the little girl's level, as she sat high upon the cold table, Dr. Lester tried to be as congenial as possible. "So, Sarah, how does your arm feel?" Shyly looking away, Sarah still said nothing. "It's okay. I won't hurt you. I just want to ask you some questions." He paused, trying to think of a different approach. "Do you know who did this to you?" he asked with a raised brow. Sarah blushed, but again said nothing. Thinking of home kept Sarah in her place. It was the wrong place, but the only one that she knew. Today's highlighted plant is marigold. Marigolds are flowers that have many benefits to the garden. Besides their beauty, the aroma from the marigold is wonderful, especially towards the autumn. When other plants are winding down their growing cycle, marigolds bloom in their full glory and scents. Marigolds attract beneficial insects and repel the harmful ones. These flowers are long keepers when picked, and the flower in the garden lasts well into the autumn, even after some light frosts and sometimes even a hard frost or two, depending on how sheltered they are. If you are growing a pot marigold with the botanical name of Calendula officinalis, I hope I pronounced that correctly, then it is said to have medicinal benefits. I don't know if all marigolds are the same, so as always, do your research before you choose to use this plant as a tea or any other edible. So for pot marigolds, they have been used medicinally for hundreds of years. They have been made into teas and used for gastric issues. They are said to be anti-inflammatory and are also an antiseptic to heal small cuts. Some people use the petals to rinse their hair, which is reported to make the hair shiny. People also use the pot marigold petals and leaves in their cooking. Most marigolds can be used as a dye for coloring clothing or uncolored yarns. As always, use your discretion and check into any unknown plant before using it for other purposes. Marigolds can grow in full sun to partial shade, and they can grow up anywhere from 24 to 36 inches or taller, depending on the variety. I have had the African variety, which I grew to over 4 feet. And I've also had a very small variety, which was only 6 inches tall. Of course, a lot of this depends on where you plant your marigold. I have eaten the marigold flowers. I have put them in ice cubes and put them in my drinks. I have garnished my plate with them. I don't eat them as a meal. However, I have eaten a few petals here and there. The most basic colors of the marigold are yellow and orange, and the petals can vary from very densely packed to more airy. I decided to look into the other type of plants that are considered marigolds, and their botanical name is, hopefully, Tagetes patula. As far as I know, is not edible. However, do your homework and find out. And so for those, I do not recommend consuming them. However, again, look into it for yourself and see what you come up with. I do know that the Calendula officinalis is reported to be edible. I hope you enjoyed today's highlighted plant, the marigold. Please like, share, and subscribe. I look forward to having you join me again next time, where where I will highlight another plant, and I will continue to read from the book titled The Monster We Call Dad by D.A. Riles, which you can purchase from Amazon.com. Thank you for having joined me.